Hello, my name is Alex from the Advent Label Applicator Company, and this is going to be a demonstration of a Advent 200, which is a plain paper labeler. So what it does is it's a labeler that melts hot melt adhesive, gets into liquid form. You have the heater here. Takes usually about 60 to 90 minutes for the glue to get where it turns nice and evenly. And it will apply a label, plain paper label, to any type of round container from about 1 inches to about 12 inches in diameter. Generally, your labels go through the center line of the machine. We do have two other points, so if you do want to make the labels off-centered because you're putting the labels towards the top of a container, we have two attachment points that we can move this finger, so we could actually run the labels on this side or this side. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to run them in the center. Usually you could put up a 1/2 inch of stack of labels. And actually I'm going to switch. Let's see here. I think we already had set this up. We did a test on this smaller container. So I'm just going to grab those right here. Just double check that. Make sure that's the right one. Yeah, it is. Okay, so we don't have many labels here, but we're just going to put our stack of labels in, just like that. Make sure it feeds correctly. And then the concept is we could adjust this carriage with this knob, and that allows you to do different diameter containers. We have it set up for this diameter candle. We turn on the machine, 2 hands. You just insert it into the labeler. And let me just adjust that carriage again. Looks like somebody was messing around with it. Let's see. Okay. Well, let me just go ahead and show the adjustment. It wasn't set up. So it's right there. It's just hovering on both sets of rollers. And it's just, you want to make sure it's not touching this brass finger bar. That's what deflects the label up to the container. We go ahead and set that in there. We have our guides, which are just simple thumb locks, no special tools required. So that allows us to adjust. Now, because these are wax candles, you can't have your guides too tight, because I notice these wax candles aren't going to be the exact same height each and every time. So you want a little bit of leeway there. And then we want to adjust our overhead pressure arm. And the overhead pressure arm is what allows these unfilled or light products to rotate. So I'm just adjusting the overhead pressure arm. There's a little bit of gap here on the stop. And what that does is prevents us from having to lift it up each and every time. So simply, you turn on the machine, 2 hands. You can see it lifts up, and then it just grabs a label, wraps it around this container, and you just take it out. You can see it does a really nice job. There's your overlap. We're actually dead on, but usually the machine is rated for about 1/16 of an inch. And just go ahead and do another one here. Insert. You can see there, that one didn't go on too well, and I think part of the reason is I think my carriage is just a little bit too close, so I'm going to have to fine-tune that. These wax candles aren't exactly perfectly concentric. You can see they're a little bit on the oval shape, so we might have to fine-tune that a little bit. Let me just go ahead and try that again. I opened up the carriage just a little bit. You can see that one went on quite nice. So let me go ahead and do some other containers here, or candles, I should say. So let's do these red ones, and I'll just show you how the changeover would happen. So you just pull your stack of labels out. Grab your next stack. Looks like that's going to be your leading edge because you have some blank space there. Generally, you just put it in the center line. Same thing with your guides. This is a narrower label, so we just have to move in our guides. And generally, you would take a stack and you want to fan it forward a little bit. But This one's not very thick, so I'm just going to pop that in there. There we go. I think that bottom one fell down. Alright, so you can see it's moving, that top label. And then we're going to adjust for the diameter. And this one, just to show you if I wanted to make it off-centered, put it towards the very top. I'll just put that there. Open up the carriage a little bit, so a little bit closer to the brass finger bar. Move my guides in. Now we have a little bit of a wick here, so what I'm going to go ahead and do, and that might have been a problem on that one white container. I didn't notice that the wick might catch that guide. So you might want to put a little space there just to prevent that wick from catching on the guide. Alright, and one other thing we could do, we could adjust the overhead pressure arm. I can move it over a little bit. So the one tool that you need is the Allen wrench tool that comes with the machine. You can slide it left and right anywhere. I'm just going to put it right here towards the top. Set my gap again. Okay. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to check, make sure that it spins nice and freely. So I'm just going to insert it and see how it rotates. And you can see here, we could just keep it up against this bottom guide and it will stay in place. And then that wick will get a little bit better clearance there. So that's probably the ideal of running it. Let me just see how these two rotate. And that looks good to me. Alright. So we'll go ahead, take our stack of labels. Tap them in there. Make sure it's feeding right. Then we'll go ahead and label them up. Okay. So we have it right at the top. You can see it goes on really nicely. Probably on these wax candles, probably average about 20 candles a minute. You can see, it does a really nice job. And let me just show you the glue pattern. The 200 uses a hot melt adhesive. It's a standard skip glue, so it's going to usually, depending on the label stock, it's going to put usually about 2 inches of glue on the leading edge, and then skip, and then put about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So you can see there's the overlap, so it's on there nice and secure. And just to show you the pattern, in the middle there won't be any glue. And there's your glue. And with this plastic overwrap, you can see it comes off pretty cleanly. And we'll just go ahead and label that again. So really straightforward. Let me do a final changeover to the largest container, or largest candle. And we'll just go ahead and button up the video there. So again, just open up my guides. And it doesn't have to be directly in the center line. Remember, you have those 2 other tap points that you can offset the labels left or right. But if you want to be a little bit off-centered, you can certainly probably get away with something like this. You can see it's still moving nicely. And then we're going to adjust for the candle itself. So open up my guides. I like to bring down a label. It just helps me sight it in a little bit better. I'm going to put it right there. Now obviously this is a larger diameter, so you need to open up the carriage. And again, just hovering over that brass finger bar. Doesn't have to be exact, but usually around 1/4 inch. And grab my guides. And these I could bring in probably a little bit tighter because the wick, it's not as close to the edge of the candle. And I think the overhead pressure arm is fine in the center. So we'll just go ahead and run this and see what happens. Now I did forget to adjust my overhead pressure arm. You can see it was difficult to push that in because there's a large gap. So let me just adjust that. We need to have that smaller gap. And that's what allows us to put in the candle nice and smoothly. Just like that, single label. Now this one, the overlap isn't as great, and that's just because these candles aren't perfect. They're not perfectly concentric like a standard metal or plastic container. So let's go ahead and we'll do this one right here. Like that. So it looks quite nice. This one got a little banged up, but we'll just go ahead and relabel that. Again, it's on there nice and secure. So that you're not going to have to worry about that label popping off. And there's our glue pattern. About 2 inches, maybe a little bit less. And we'll just go ahead and insert that again. A little bit better. So that is the Advent 200. So any questions, we can reach at 800-846-7716. Thank you.